Nothing in this podcast or on our website should be construed as medical advice. Consult your healthcare provider for your individual nutritional and medical needs. The information presented is based on our research and is strictly that of the author and not necessarily those of any professional group or other individual.
Hi, I'm Sue Becker from Bread Beckers. Welcome to Sue's Healthy Minutes. I'm so excited you've joined me today, and I hope this episode encourages you and allows you to find the answers you have been praying for the health of you and your family. This time of year is often referred to as cold and flu season, so it is a great time to eat healthy and focus on building and supporting our immune system. So today, while we are in Israel, I thought it would be a great time to replay episode 9 of Sue's Healthy Minutes, The Army Within Us. May you be encouraged as you are reminded of this amazing army within us that is constantly doing battle to protect us from microscopic foreign invaders. Please enjoy Episode 9 of Sue's Healthy Minutes, The Army Within Us. With today's current health concerns, much attention and marketing are being given to boosting our immune systems. The idea of boosting one's immune system is intriguing to the scientific mind, to say the least. The immune system is exactly what the term implies. It's a system. It is more complex than just one entity. It does not stand alone. Many products are being marketed as immune boosters. Since the American diet and lifestyle definitely contribute to a nutrient deficiency, these suggestions cannot be ignored. And certainly God gave us herbs as well as food for medicine. But we must be careful in focusing on a supplement or an herb to fix this very complex system. The results are difficult to measure, and the exact mode of influence is relatively unknown to most. There is, however, one major player in our immune system whose role is more easily understood, and that is our gut and the organisms that live there. Today, I want to continue with my 7 steps to healthy living by looking at step number 3, reestablishing and feeding our good gut organisms. The more I study about real bread and the function of fiber in our gut, the more I have learned of the importance of these friendly gut organisms. The human intestinal tract is normally populated by millions of bacteria and yeast that work day and night to protect us. Some are considered good organisms, while others are considered potentially bad. In the right balance, though, all can play a beneficial role not only in the digestive process of our food, but also our overall health. It is well accepted that a healthy gut microflora is critical in protecting us against unwanted invasion and establishment of disease-causing organisms. It was perhaps the Russian-born scientist Ilya Mechnikov that brought this truth to the scientific world and now public attention. Way back in 1908, Mechnikov won the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine for his work concerning immune function. In his book, The Prolongation of Life, Mechnikov wrote that the secret to the longevity and good health of the people in the Caucasus Mountains of Russia was their daily consumption of fermented goat's milk, known as kefir, or as Americans say it, kefir. Long before Mechnikov's discovery, the fermentation of foods was extensively used by people groups around the world as a means of simply food preservation. But the role of fermented foods in immune health was not previously understood. For thousands of years, without understanding the scientific basis, people used these lactic acid-producing organisms, bacteria and yeast complexes, to ferment foods such as bread or milk into yogurt, cheese and kefir, grapes into wine, and vegetables into sauerkraut or kimchi. This fermentation not only preserves the food, but also yields different flavors and textures as well as nutrients from the original food. Scientists now know that these same lactic acid producing organisms are the critical organisms of a healthy gut and have tremendous immune and health promoting functions. Whenever I teach on the role of these amazing organisms in our guts, I cannot help but think of the scripture in 1 John 4:4 that declares, "Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world." The Apostle John here is reminding us that we will be confronted by many opposing spirits in the world, but the Spirit of God that lives within us is greater and will overcome these enemies. But in the same way, our bodies are constantly being exposed to microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, and yeast, or germs living in the world around us. They are everywhere, and there is no escaping our daily and constant exposure, no matter how hard we may try. These germs are everywhere, and they outnumber us significantly. In fact, there are more organisms in us and on us than people that are in the world. This verse simply makes me think of how fearfully and wonderfully we are made. For though we are confronted every day by these germs of bacteria, viruses, and yeast, we have a greater army of gut organisms within us, ready and willing to fight any foreign invader. But like any army, you must make sure your army is well fed and replenished. Unfortunately, the sad American diet and the overconsumption of chemically laden preserved foods and the heavy use of antibiotics has done much to diminish our internal good army population, while, unfortunately, encouraging the bad. To replenish our army, it is important to daily consume fermented foods, such as yogurt, kefir, fermented vegetables, as well as fresh fruits and vegetables. You may not realize that even unfermented fresh fruits and vegetables are loaded with these health promoting organisms. It has recently been discovered that an apple has 100 million microbes in it and on it, many of which are known to be beneficial to humans. So maybe that apple a day to keep the doctor away advice was about more than just the vitamins, minerals, and fiber that the apple provides. Consuming fermented foods as well as real whole foods on a daily basis is important for replenishing our troops that have died off when killed in battle or used up. For extra reinforcement, especially if you've had to use antibiotics or if your diet has been less than real, you might consider supplementation here. A probiotic supplement may give your gut army the jumpstart it needs to ensure reestablishment. There is an abundance of probiotic supplements to choose from today, but after much research, I prefer a whole fermented food prebiotic and probiotic supplement called Light Years Ahead that we offer here at Sue Beckers. It is one of the few supplements that uses fermented whole foods with 12 key strains of lactobacillus, that is lactic acid producing bacteria, as well as 2 strains of symbiotic yeast. This is a unique formulation and is designed to reestablish the critical, proper microflora balance in your gut. I've not found any other formula as effective. You can order it online at breadbeckers.com or just come in and pick some up in our store. Now, I'll warn you, it's a green powder, but it can easily be disguised in a smoothie or juice for those with a picky palate. But I actually just take it each morning in a small amount of water and swish it in my mouth before swallowing it down. I prefer that it is not encapsulated as it works through the whole system from the mouth all the way down. I think it's important to note here that not all yeast is bad, that just as there are strains of good bacteria and pathogenic bacteria, there are strains of good yeast as well as bad. The strains of yeast in this probiotic, or the ones that rise our bread, for instance, those are good yeast. A healthy gut microbiome will have both and will help keep these pathogens in check. As we continue to replenish our army of organisms by including these fermented foods in our daily diet, it's equally important to feed them. A diet of fiber-rich foods such as fresh fruits and vegetables and legumes, but most especially whole grains and, of course, our real bread made from freshly milled flour are the perfect food choices for not only you, but also your army within. In addition to the amazing nutrients that these real whole foods provide, the undigested fiber from these foods, especially our real bread, are known as prebiotics, and they end up in your gut as the primary food source for this army within. In episode 3, Digestion and Elimination, you might remember that we thoroughly discussed digestion and the role of fiber, mostly relating to our elimination process. We mentioned only briefly fiber's necessary role in a process called gut fermentation and the daily nutritional contribution this process alone gives to us. So today, I want to discuss in greater detail that gut fermentation. As discussed in episode 3, Digestion and Elimination, when a carbohydrate, such as the insoluble fiber found in the bran of whole grains, and of course, our real bread, is not capable of being digested, it enters the colon, where it begins to be feasted on or fermented by our good gut organisms. These non-digestible carbohydrates are known as prebiotics, as they support the growth of these beneficial organisms that live in our colon. As these organisms feed on this undigested fiber through fermentation, they produce an abundance of health-promoting nutrients. Your gut then has become its own fermented food factory as your army feeds and produces all kinds of beneficial nutrients, such as B vitamins, which are needed in almost every metabolic process in our bodies. They are critical for the energy production of every cell in our bodies, as well as cofactors in our sugar and our fat metabolism. Known as the anti-stress vitamins, we simply cannot get enough of these critical B vitamins through our diet alone. God gave us an amazing B vitamin factory right in our guts for free, as long as we replenish and feed these organisms daily. Vitamin K is another byproduct of gut fermentation, as well as enzymes to help the further breakdown of undigested food in our colon. But perhaps most significant to our health is the abundant production of numerous essential short-chain fatty acids, such as acetic acid, propionic acid, and butyric acid. These fatty acids have a significant effect in the colon by increasing the moisture and lowering the pH. This more acid environment is hostile to pathogenic organisms in our colon, such as E. coli. Studies show that these fatty acids also exhibit great anti-carcinogenic activity. Butyric acid in particular is the main source of energy for the cells of the mucosal lining of our colon, and therefore gives significant anti-inflammatory and healing protection to the gut lining of our colon. Through the process of gut fermentation, these organisms also produce their own antibiotics as they resist the hostile takeover of unfriendly organisms. They don't want these pathogens in our guts any more than we do. These nutrients are all made available to our bodies through absorption from our gut. Fiber from real whole grains and whole foods do so much more than just make you poop. They are a health-producing powerhouse in so many ways. Diet and the heavy use of antibiotics, however, can adversely affect the delicate balance between the good and pathogenic organisms that live in our guts. One common example of this imbalance is a problem known simply as a yeast infection. In actuality, it is an overgrowth of a particular pathogenic species of yeast known as Candida albicans. which all too often gets out of control, especially after antibiotics have been needed. Many Americans, both young and old, struggle with issues that can be directly attributed to an overgrowth of this strain of yeast, such as hyperactivity, brain fog, trouble sleeping, mood swings, and even learning and behavior difficulties. Many children have found help by simply getting the gut organisms in balance with a probiotic supplement and diet. There is one point that is important to make here before moving on to the practical steps of reestablishing our good gut organisms, and that is how these organisms, or lack of them, might relate to food allergies and intolerances. Over the past few years, I've had a growing concern about the number of people being diagnosed with food intolerances and other food allergies, particularly to gluten. Although I know and I understand that for some people, these intolerances are very real and the removal of certain foods might be the only option. Nevertheless, I still wonder why food allergies are so common, particularly in America. A number of years ago, I began to seriously consider the relationship of so many food allergies to a lack of the friendly probiotic organisms that should be living in our gut. My consideration began when, on two separate occasions, two people came to me seeking nutritional advice and help with their severe food allergies that had developed only as adults. Both shared similar stories. Both began with an infection of some kind and multiple rounds of antibiotics. One, a young man in his mid-30s, said that he had had a kidney infection, which was treated with antibiotics. Unfortunately, it took 3 rounds of antibiotics to clear his infection. He said that before that, he had had no known food allergies, but after the 3 rounds of antibiotics, he now had multiple food allergies to many delicious foods, not limited to any one food group. I couldn't help but think, could there be a connection between allergies and a diminished army of good gut organisms? You might remember from episode 7, The Truth About Wheat, that I shared a quote from a popular and well-respected medical doctor. In case you have forgotten, he declares that damage to the gastrointestinal tract from the overuse of antibiotics, anti-inflammatory drugs like Advil and Aleve, and acid-blocking drugs like Prilosec and Nexium, combined with our low-fiber, high-sugar diet, leads to gluten intolerances and other sensitivities. In our ministry in Haiti through Real Bread Outreach, we are feeding about 1,200 school children real bread made from freshly milled wheat. We have never seen one adverse effect or had one parent or child say that they could not eat gluten or the bread. Not to mention that most often, to complement the protein of the bread, it's served and eaten with peanut butter, a common allergen in the U.S., but not in Haiti. The bread and muffins and peanut butter are taken into schools, churches, and orphanages, and never once a question of allergy. And seeing the improved health of these kids has been an added blessing, I can tell you. But I've come away wondering, why no allergies? Considering that Haiti is one of the poorest nations in the Western Hemisphere, if not the world, and for many, hunger is a real issue, most live, however, on a simple diet of beans and rice, and fresh fruits and vegetables are available abundantly for the picking, while antibiotics are not. I must say, I begin to consider, is there a connection? While antibiotics are often life-saving, we must remember that they kill the good guys in our gut along with the bad guys in our body. Also, when food is not digested completely, it goes to our colon, where it should be broken down by these organisms through gut fermentation. But if gut fermentation is limited because our good gut organisms are compromised, many of the undigested proteins can wreak havoc to our gut lining and villi and actually get absorbed through our now leaky gut and then recognized by our bodies as a foreign invader, often provoking an allergic reaction. Now, I want to emphasize that while allergies can be genetic and very serious, and your only option may be total elimination of that food, I have recently read several medical studies of reversing gluten allergies and other non-genetic food allergies by reestablishing our good gut organisms through probiotic and prebiotic supplementation and including fermented foods in the daily diet. The makeup of our good microflora will change and adapt to produce the enzymes needed to help us extract and process the nutrients we need from our foods. Now, today, as in last week's episode, I don't want to just tell you or convince you that you need to reestablish your good gut organisms by eating fermented foods. I want to leave you with a few tips that I have learned along the way that have helped me make the change. Different fermented foods and beverages have different probiotic makeup, so enjoy a good variety and try to drink or eat some at every meal. In most other countries, and especially the Mediterranean, yogurt and fermented foods are part of every meal. America has certainly moved away from our roots. Yogurt is perhaps the most common and readily available of all the fermented foods offered in the store today. There is now actually a whole section of refrigerator space in the grocery store dedicated to the many yogurt choices. A word of caution here. You really want to avoid the heavily sweetened and additive-laden yogurts. Look for a full-fat, unsweetened yogurt with at least 5 different strains of live active organisms. Now, I totally understand if you, or especially your children, do not like unsweetened yogurt. Evidently, neither did Jesus. Now, before you laugh, let me just share with you. In Isaiah 7:14 and 15, Isaiah prophesies to Israel that the Lord himself will give them a sign and that a virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and shall call his name Emmanuel. Verse 15 then tells us that curds, the biblical equivalent for yogurt, and honey will he eat. So while you want to avoid the heavily sugared and flavored yogurts, you can by all means sweeten that good, full-fat, plain yogurt with some good raw honey and fresh fruit. Smoothies are perhaps the easiest way to get your kids and you enjoying the goodness of fermented milk products. Yogurt and milk kefir are the perfect base for delicious smoothies with added fresh or frozen fruit and sweetened with a little honey. Yogurt is very easy to make. A designated yogurt maker is a good idea, as the organisms that ferment milk into yogurt need to incubate at about 110 degrees. We carry several styles at Beckers. I also use a yogurt strainer that drains much of the whey off the yogurt, giving it a more sour cream consistency that I use in place of sour cream and as a base for all my dips and spreads. Kefir, both milk and juice, is loaded with good bacteria as well as yeast. It's great for balancing and recolonizing the gut. It's very easy to make as it incubates at room temperature, usually overnight, and naturally carbonates that juice. We have starters for juice kefir, but a good plain milk kefir can be used as a starter for milk. Our juice kefir was recently a favorite served at a kid's cooking class. It even won out over the pizza and the muffins. I'm telling you, your kids will enjoy the bubbly juice that you're serving them. Homemade sauerkraut is nothing like the canned and prepackaged stuff in the store. It is easy and very versatile to make using a fermentation crock. At Beckers, we sell the crocks as well as a making sauerkraut book that gives you all the instructions you need for kraut as well as other fermented vegetables, and then creative ways to serve these delicious foods. And last but not least, don't forget raw fruits and vegetables are loaded with these good microorganisms. Remember our apple that we mentioned earlier? So if fermented foods sound a little intimidating, just start by incorporating more fresh fruits and vegetables. And we will discuss eating more fruits and vegetables more thoroughly in step number 4 next time. Our good gut army within us is just too important to neglect. A quick recap. Our good gut organisms improve digestion, increase nutrient absorption, produce an abundance of nutrients for free right in our gut, and they go and wage war on pathogenic organisms and germs that confront us every day. We are truly, fearfully, and wonderfully made. God has given us an army within us. Let us replenish it and feed it every day. Thank you for listening today. This is Sue Becker from Bread Beckers with Sue's Healthy Minutes.
Sue's Healthy Minutes podcast has been a presentation by the Bread Beckers Incorporated located in Woodstock, Georgia. For more information, store hours, and learning opportunities, visit breadbeckers.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. Share this with 2 friends who would benefit from this information, and be sure to join us again next week for more of Sue's Healthy Minutes.